Welcome to Options Matrix Pro. Thank you for signing up and joining with us. The whole purpose of Options Matrix Pro is to be able to give you professional grade options analysis in a fraction of the time. I have built this platform predominantly to serve myself, and very quickly, when speaking to others, have realized that this would be of great use to many others. There are four key sections or segments within Options Matrix Pro that you'll be able to see here. The first of which is the options yield matrix. I'll go through each of these in a lot more detail, but just quickly outlining. The second is a strategy visualizer. The third is an options scanner to go through a set of watch list items or tickers and identify potential stocks that would be great to trade. And the fourth is an AI analyst. So the way in which I'll actually run this is, and you can start either with the matrix exploring a single ticker or symbol, or you can start with the scanner itself. Oftentimes I know what I'm looking for, and my scanner is kind of replicated within my watch list on the matrix. So I'm often just clicking through individual symbols, having a look at particular configurations as I know what I'm looking at. And then I might take it that step further into the visualization of the strategy, see the P&L curves, what it looks like in a table, theta decays, etc. over time. However, I also might be low in terms of my percentage of portfolio that's currently being traded. And so I need to identify additional stock options that are worth trading. And so I'll run the scanner to be able to quickly do that. So I can run through 100 different tickers in a fraction of time, and saves me a lot of effort. And then lastly, I'll use the analyze with AI mostly to validate ideas rather than actually to generate the ideas. Yeah, it's often mostly just to test the concepts and ensure I haven't missed something. So oftentimes you might be focused on a particular Greek, like the delta or the theta or something, but the gamma could be significantly affecting it, or other volatility metrics or things like that. So AI is great to just help make sure that you're not going in with some blind spot. Lastly, just a note here around the different data modes. Now, currently everything I'm using is cached data. Now, that can be cached depending on the ticker itself, from a few seconds to a few minutes old. I'm going to say that for what we're doing around options, it really doesn't make any difference. By the time you actually run this, go into your trading platform, whether that's an Interactive Brokers or Thinkorswim or whatever that is, and actually place a trade, the market will move. The whole point is to be able to identify where the key opportunities are for the right setup that you're looking to do. Personally, the reason I built this was that, and for reference, I live in Australia, and so the market is open pretty much when I'm sleeping. So between typically 11 p.m. and 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning. And so I'm often actually researching and doing this before the market even opens, placing the trades itself preemptively, and allowing the market to run. Or I might wake up very early just before the market closes, run the scans, and actually place the trades then. But the whole idea is that I want to be able to trade significant portfolio dollars with about 15 to 30 minutes. And I'm not doing this every day. I might only look at this even once a week. So I'm typically placing, cash secure puts or wheel strategies on a monthly basis is typically what I look at. Could be shorter depending on what the yield looks like. But the point is to save time. I have multiple other jobs and I'm an entrepreneur. And so the aim of Options Matrix Pro is to save you time, but surface the information that actually is relevant. Once this builds up and we have enough subscribers, paying subscribers eventually, I would like to flip it to a live feed and see how much further we can take this. But for now, please just note that it is a cached feed that is slightly delayed. All right, now let's get into the good part. So the matrix screen, once you go into it, it just does take a little bit to load. It pulls the information. you'll see that it will typically just default to whatever the last symbol you were looking at. I'm currently on TSM. But you'll be able to see the matrix. So you'll see, and this is, by the way, a cash secure put strategy. If you see here, you can change the strategy, cash secure put or covered call. You've got the actual watch list. You could add items to the watch list and then just run through and change the symbols that you're actually looking for, and it will fetch that latest data itself. What I've got it defaulted to, and what I find most useful, is a monthly yield. Now, you can view the actual yield, but the problem I was constantly facing is, how do I evaluate the difference between this 1.6% to this 2.9% versus this 1.1% over here? It was quite challenging, and I'd have to sit there and do the mental gymnastics and the math to figure out what the equivalent monthly yield is. Personally, I'd like to aim for a monthly yield of 2 to 3%. That's roughly 24 to 36% return annually for what I'm going to call relatively safe trades. I then set a bunch of other options in here too. So my days to expiration range, I typically say, essentially this week, so 2 to 60 days. I set a particular delta range, minimum probability of profit, and a minimum monthly yield. Now, if you reduce that, so if I say 1%, it's going to increase and show more items here. Or I could, if I decrease the monthly yield, or if I increase the monthly yield and say I only want something that's, say, above 3%, for example, on a monthly yield, it's going to change that. Sorry, I'm just realizing I'm on actual yield. That's why it shows differently. But the monthly yield, you can actually see how that's changing and being configured. But that's kind of that point where in actual yield, you can see it's kind of all over the place. But if I was to convert some of these to monthly, you can very quickly see that they're actually over 3%. So typically, the closer to the spot price you are, the higher the yield, and also the closer to expiration, the higher the yield. So what I'm typically often looking for is some form of arbitrage-based opportunity whereby I can be further to the left, right? So this is essentially how far from the spot price it is. So on Meta here, just scanning this in real time to see if there is any key opportunities. Doesn't really look like it. It looks like they're mostly in line. But sometimes you might spot an opportunity whereby the yield, like say this one here, this could be say 2.8%, and it's actually higher than the surrounding figures, and it would present a great arbitrage styled opportunity itself as you kind of work through it. But ultimately, I'd also say look for something that fits with what you're willing to trade. I mean, this is NNE, which is another good one, very high volatility stock. The reason why, it's highlighted in yellow if you see it, is because it's got a wide bid to ask spread. So I've kind of tried to define that as like a greater than 20%. Having said that, it is in absolute figures. So even though the bid is 20 cents and the ask is 45 cents, the spread's actually not that big, but technically it's 125% spread. So it is being highlighted in yellow, just to note. That's me being overly cautious. So let's just go back. Where were we? We were on TSM before, right? So you can see that some of them, this is a better view whereby I can actually see, yep, they're normal, but some of these have got greater than 20% spreads. And that's where I'm interested. Obviously, right now, when I'm recording this, the market's actually closed. You can see that in the top right. I've got that set to my local time. You can click that to change it to essentially US-based time. Oh, it is worth noting that these watch lists, these items are US stocks only. For options trading, I definitely recommend US stocks. Again, purely from the perspective of you need market liquidity and volume to be able to trade effectively, and that's again what I'd be suggesting there. So you can see monthly yields, you can see actual yields. If you want, you can see what the delta is, what the probability of profit looks like. You can see what the premium is that you'll actually be receiving, right? So depending on what you're looking for. the number of contracts, which I should actually mention. If we keep scrolling, there's a portfolio size. You can enter how much you actually trading in terms of your current dollars, and how do you want to size it based on max collateral percentage or maximum loss, and what percentage of portfolio do you want to trade. So typically I might be trading about 5 to 10% of my portfolio in any single options trade. And what I'm talking about is the max collateral, right? Given that we're talking about cash secured puts, if I'm at 10%, that would be 10 different options that I'm trading. 5% would effectively be 20 different ones. So I'm often at 10%, but to be conservative here, I have 5%, and I definitely recommend being as conservative as possible. Most option traders lose, predominantly because they don't manage risk, and management of risk is what's actually key here. So please set those things. And so when I'm saying the number of contracts, this is great because it quickly helps me calculate that. So if I was looking for a particular trade or something like that, I can very quickly and easily see, I want that 2.8%. How many contracts should I be trading? 2.8. All right, so I might want to round it and go, if I want to be conservative, down to 2. If I want to be a bit more aggressive than the portfolio percentage, knowing I've got it set at 5%, I might round it up to 3, right? And so that's a really great way to be able to look at it. I can see what my collateral dollars will be, obviously all percentage based. And I also really like break-even percentages. So that's another really useful metric. So whilst those percentages up here are the distance from the spot price, obviously when you're doing cash secured puts, you're collecting a premium. And so if you bake that premium in, you can see where your break-even percentage actually looks like as a drop from the spot price. Again, you got your total premiums that you can collect, collaterals, and max loss. Actually, those don't appear to be working. I will fix those after. Which actually, I'm going to segue to this. I have a support section. If you identify any bugs, or you'd like to request a feature or ask a question, please don't hesitate to reach out, particularly for bugs. I want to do my best to try and solve or fix anything that's identified. So please just fill that in under the support section. All right, so back to the matrix here. So you can see the different components. I'm going to switch back to my monthly yield that I prefer to use. Let's go pick something here. 8th of May at the 3:40. You can actually see the data down here as well. So you can see all the key data and information, the number of contracts, all those different filters we were talking about. You can actually view it here. You can do a different filtered view by strike or by expiry as well. And then let's move to the next tab. Actually, sorry, just for reference again, you can also change to the covered calls instead of secured puts, and it's essentially the same concept or same sort of thing. But we're going to jump to the visualizer tab. So I just clicked on that little icon there, which visualizes that specific item, but you could just jump directly to the visualizer tab here as well. So again, I've got this in table view, but you can jump to the graph view and actually see what that looks like. This is the expiration date. I've got it midway between the today and expiration. So that's of today. And then versus asset expiration. I'm just going to also mention that this is a mathematical formula. Despite what you see, and everyone makes it look all perfect and smooth, it is a mathematical, Black-Scholes style interpretation of the future, and there are edges in it. So I'm going to say this: my model shows a lot more of those edges than I've seen probably in many other. I'm going to say other competing products that are out there. It's not quite as smooth as people probably would like to believe. Also, you can change the types of things. So whilst I predominantly focus on cash secured puts and covered calls, it's the wheel strategy. You can also view other types of strategies as well through here and see what actually occurs. Like I said, not quite as smooth and even as people think. You can change the wings. You can change, move things around here, and it will all adjust. I'm going to say have a play. You can add various legs here. Just change the different strategies according to what you need. You can save the trades. You can open up the actual positions as well, change the dollar amounts, put commissions in, a whole range of factors that you can play with. I will just say that this is probably the most finicky component of what I've built. The save trades in particular is just new, and so I haven't really fleshed it out. So that needs a bit of work. But the visualizer is mostly there. Again, if you identify any key issues, please do just let me know. You can also adjust the volatility to see what happens with volatility over time. The table is probably a better view for that. So that's the visualizer page. Good to just have a look and see what happens. All right, let's go to the scanner quickly. So in the scanner, you can actually save different lists. I've got like some AI stocks that were recommended, a default list, or just all the lists put together. You effectively have the different ticker symbols. You can add your own. You can move, select ones and move them to new lists. Again, have a bit of a play. There is scanner settings at the top. So when we scan, what's your minimum DTEs and portfolio levels, etc. Again, for you to set. So pick your symbols, your strike, what's the minimum yield you're looking for, right? So again, minimum probability of profit. I mean, I normally leave those blank, but you can set them if you'd like. And then are you looking for a cash secured put or a covered call effectively on those things? And then you can essentially just select it. So I'm going to just pick, let's say, my AI stocks. There are a few different things you can do here. So you can auto calibrate it. And what that's doing is, the whole point of this is to identify where there's some decent opportunities that match your criteria. One of the best ways I've ever had cash secured puts explained to me was you are willing to buy, think of it like a house, if it was to fall to a particular point. Now, it may continue to fall, but you are always happy to buy it at that price. So if that house was $1 million, currently it's $1.2 million, but you were willing to buy it if it was to fall to $1 million. That's what the cash secured put is, and you receive a premium for that kind of option. Now it may fall even below that $1 million to $800,000, but you were always willing to buy it if it fell to $1 million, and that's what I'm typically looking for. But I'm often looking at, so there's the GEX, there's open interest, there's a whole range of other factors, max pain, etc. So I've tried to fetch this data. I'm going to say it's not always accurate as the market moves and changes. Again, good indicator, but definitely is reflective. So this auto calibrate feature, what it does is you can set when you want it. By default, I set it to the next third Friday of the month, which is typically your like triple witching. Oh, sorry, if it's quarterly, like triple witching, but when all your options, and that's where the highest volume is. So I defaulted to that, but you can change it to whenever you want. And I typically look at the put wall open interest to identify that key metric. There is a default as well. If it can't actually find the relevant metric, it'll default to, I think, like 10% below stock price. I think like that's what this will be if you see fallback. But it'll kind of tell you what it's using. It's gonna try and use what you're saying. What is it currently set to, and what does it propose changing it to? And you can just see that direction versus the currently what it's set to. But you can take that and literally click apply, and you're done, right? It's now gone and updated all those strike prices with kind of the price that you would be happy to own it at. All right, that's kind of the point we're trying to make here. You're still setting your minimum yield, which I've just set at 3%. Then what you can do is you can run the scan. So the scan will run. It runs, I think, in batches of 15 to 20, something like that. Actually, I think it's running in batches of maybe even 25. Sorry, I forgot now what I've got it set to. So you can see there's 3 matches in here. So CRWD, what it's essentially saying is I've found those matches. Again, I'm choosing a minimum break-even point and a minimum DTE here as well, which is just a filter. And based on that, these are the different options. And again, here's the monthly yields and what might be of interest, right? And so you can then go through, again, you can go to the visualizer, have a look at it, but you can essentially go and choose these ones. But that's what I'm saying, there's additional opportunities where it's meeting the minimum strike level that I'm kind of looking at, or the maximum strike, I should say, if it's a cash secured put. as well as the minimum yield that I'm looking for. And this again provides me with some really great options. I'll often sit and look through this. I'll look at my break even points. I'll look at what the premium I'm going to receive is and try and work that out. So I might go, hey, this looks fantastic. I'm going to get a monthly yield of 4.77%, which is $2,000. And the break even point is 12.63% below the current spot price. So you go, hey, that looks great. I'd be interested in that stock. Obviously, considering what the IV is, it's quite an elevated IV type stock, though. And then you can still also view the non-matched. So I thought it's just useful to have what the non-matched is and how close it got. So the non-matched was like 300 is what we're looking at, but the monthly yield was like 1.14%, so well below what we were looking for. But all that information's there if you want to have a look at, and it's quite useful to just help quickly scan through. Then finally, you've got the AI Analyst, which if you go through it, you can effectively ask whatever question you want. I just ran this just now, and it goes, here's a conservative plan based on what I've just asked, pulls it together. Again, I wouldn't typically use it in this fashion. I'd actually be saying this is what I'm looking at and then ask whether there's anything in particular. Just so you know, the context it uses is anything you've just looked at in Matrix and if you've just scanned something. So like I just scanned 16 tickers, so that's loaded into the context as well as the Matrix. So the items we just looked at was TSM, NNE, and Meta just now. And so you can see that's actually what's loaded into the context. And it essentially has a 30-minute retention on each of those. Obviously, if you go and update it again, it's going to update that information within the analyst. But once the 30-minute passes, then it's going to lose that context. It's going to assume that the data is effectively old. But yeah, it's a great mechanism for you to be able to do that. You can also view your past chats and things like that down here, create new chats, etc. And then there's saved trades, which I'm not going to go through in the interest of time. Finally, you've got your account. You can have a look at the information there. Support we've discussed. And finally, just some key settings as well. So you can go into general, change your number formats, currency that you're interested in. I'm loading just an FX model to be able to do the conversions. In the matrix, that tooltip fields that was hovering over, you can change what you want them to be. That spread wording, I said I've got it set to 20%. If you want to change that, you can do that. How many rows do you want in your heat matrix before you have to scroll? Again, you might have a bigger or smaller screen. You can change that. I've tried to make the options as available as possible. The columns that appear in the tables. You can essentially go through and make the modifications as you see fit. Same with the scanners, the AI analyst, how long it's going to retain the data for. All those sorts of things are there and available to you. So I really hope that you actually enjoy this and find that it saves you a lot of time. My aim is that this isn't the biggest, most complicated software out there for options that does everything. What I actually want it to do is to help you trade and master a particular strategy. And in my case, that was the wheel. And that's what I would definitely suggest. You can use that as just a pure income strategy. And often people will do that with much lower percentages, like 1% or even less per month. Even at 1%, that would be a 12% return, which again, you'd just typically be beating the market in any given year on average for relatively low risk. But I typically use it not just as an income strategy, but to be able to grow my portfolio at a return of 2 to 3% per month. I'll often also put on a black swan hedge as well, which it just sits there in the background. And even if that costs me, say, 5%, even per 6 months, or even 10% per year, but if I know that I'm going to return, it means I can be more aggressive and aim even higher than a 3% return per month. But even if it was a 3% per month, at 36%, and I take away the 10 that I'm losing effectively in my black swan hedge, I'd still return 26% per year without risk, effectively, right? I mean, black swans, and so long as I'm diversifying and all the rest of it, right? That's the key strategy here. So I've gone on for quite a long time. I really hope you enjoy this. Please sign up. pay and support me as I continue to build on this. Leave any feedback and enjoy the product.